How are you? I'm glad to meet you. Today's topic is the Israelites' 42 campsites in wilderness, chapter 3. The author is Abraham Park. Elim is the fifth campsite. Numbers chapter 33 verse 9. Meaning, Elim is a plural form of ayîl, which means strength, tree, or terebinth. Thus, Elim means trees, or large trees. Location. It was an oasis around a wadi that flows along a main road between Marah and the wilderness of Sin. It was the first region found with spring water. It is located about 6 miles, 10 kilometers, south of Marah, and is known as Wadi Garandal today. Event. Elim was an oasis with many streams and springs. There were 12 springs of water and 70 date palms, Exodus chapter 15 verse 27. Date palms reach over 85 feet, 27 meters, in height with feather-like leaves on top that grow to about 10 feet, 3 meters, in span. After having walked through dry wilderness without a drop of water or any type of plant, the Israelites probably quenched their thirst with great excitement when they arrived at Elim. It was a place where the Israelites were able to relax and rest for the first time since the Exodus. Lesson. After giving them the grace of turning bitter water into sweet water, God led the Israelites to Elim, a place where they could sufficiently rest. This gives us the hope that the Elim of blessings awaits us as long as we can find the Lord, even in the midst of life's sufferings. The 12 springs of water and 70 date palms are reminiscent of the 12 tribes and 70 elders that Moses was leading, Numbers 11:16, and also of the 12 disciples and 70 followers of Jesus, Mattew 10:1. Luke chapter 10 verse 1. A true church where Jesus dwells is a church with 12 springs of water and 70 date palms, an oasis and resting place that provides the water of life to many people. By the Red Sea is the sixth campsite. Numbers chapter 33 verse 10. Meaning, Red Sea means sea of reeds. Location. The camp was by the Red Sea, located between Elim and the wilderness of Sin. Event. The book of Exodus does not mention anything about camping by the Red Sea, Exodus 16:1. But Numbers chapter 33 verse 10 clearly states, and they journeyed from Elim and camped by the Red Sea. It seems that this place is so named because the Israelites crossed through a stream of water that flows into the Red Sea and camped by the Red Sea. Lesson. By this time, the Israelites had begun to run out of food. They had already begun grumbling that they were about to die of hunger in the wilderness of Sin, Exodus 16:1. So they had even less food by the time they were camping by the Red Sea. As disbelief began to sprout from their worries and concerns about food, their hearts began to waver like reeds. A reed grows in swampy land or by water to about 6 to 10 feet, 2 or 3 meters, in height. Its stem is hollow and has joints, but it is firm and straight. However, a reed usually symbolizes weakness because it sways easily in the wind and is not strong enough to be used as a stick or staff. God told the Israelites not to rely on the staff of this crushed reed. Even on Egypt, 2 Kings chapter 18 verse 21, Isaiah 36:6, Ezekiel chapter 29 verse 6. Although Egypt may have seemed strong, in the eyes of God it was only a crushed reed. There is no gain in depending on the powers of the visible world. Rather, there comes only great shame and distress, Isaiah 30:1. The strength of the living God is a strength that does not break, Psalms 18:1, Isaiah 40:31. Blessed is the person whose strength is in the Lord, Psalms 84:5. The wilderness of Sin is the seventh campsite, Exodus chapter 16 verse 1. Numbers chapter 33 verse 11. Meaning, Sin means thorny bush, swampy land, or clay. Location. It is located southeast of the wilderness of Shur, between Elim and Mount Sinai, Exodus 16:1. It is the eastern border district of Egypt. Event. The Israelites arrived in the wilderness of Sin 1 month the Exodus, the first year, 2nd month. 15th day, Exodus chapter 16 verse 1. Although the Israelites experienced the miraculous Exodus, they turned right around and grumbled against the men of God, Moses and Aaron, Exodus chapter 16 verse 2. Here, God began to provide them with manna, food from heaven. The amount that each person was to gather was 1 omer, Exodus chapter 16 verse 16. Manna came down for 39 years and 11 months. From 1 month after the Exodus, 1st year, 2nd month, 15th day, until the 41st year, 1st month, 15th day, Joshua chapter 5 verse 10. Lesson. When their earthly food ran out, the Israelites began to speak against God, and their words were like the meaning of the place, thorns, sin. They spoke against God, saying, "Can God prepare a table in the wilderness?" Psalm 78-19, and, "Can he give bread also?" Psalm 78-20. Having heard this, God was full of wrath, and he grieved. Then, he commanded the clouds above, opened the doors of heaven, and rained down manna upon them every single day for their food. Exodus chapter 16 verse 4. Psalm 78-21. Thorns are needle-like sharp points on plants that inflict pain upon people and animals. Spiritually, thorns are people who are extremely arrogant and wicked, always standing against God and hurting others spiritually and physically. 2 Samuel chapter 23 verse 6. Despite the thorny grumblings that pricked his heart, Exodus chapter 16 verse 3. God was full of compassion and sent down manna to solve the issue of hunger and quiet the grumblings. Jesus Christ is the spiritual manna that solves the issue of hunger for the spirit and body. John chapter 6 verse 48. The author of this content is Reverend Abraham Park. Reverend Abraham Park was an acclaimed world-class theologian with remarkable pastoral spirituality. He had dedicated his entire life to prayer and the scriptures, having read the Bible over 1,800 times. Throughout his lifetime ministry, he was a true pastor who loved the church and the congregation like his own children. His daily schedule consisted of 2-hour prayers and 3-hour Bible readings, as well as continual preaching and evangelizing. With conviction that to die is to live, he prayed deep in the mountains for more than 3 years. When the sun set, he did nothing but pray. When the sun rose, he did nothing but read the Bible. Then, finally, a single ray of grace shone upon him. Through the powerful illumination of the Holy Spirit and by the grace of God, the scenes in the Bible unfolded like a panorama before his eyes. These scenes were written down on large arrowroot leaves which were bound with a twig. They were later transcribed onto paper bought from a village under the mountain every few months. This is how the Reverend Abraham Park's sermons began. Many people are impressed by the Reverend Abraham Park as follows. How can a person love so many people? How can a person make such a big impact to so many people? He is so hard-working, never rest. He never ceased to pray. He deserves to be truly honored for his dedication for the church and the congregations. A true and faithful worker of God. This concludes today's message. Thank you very much. God bless you. I wish you have a good day.